Hey guys, Melissa again. Today I want to talk about Susan Mckeown. I had met her one day. I was in a restaurant and we were talking, and I didn't even know, who she was or anything. Just a customer that I was waiting on when I was waitressing, and she and I started talking about marriage, and come to find out she's written a book and she has an email about marriage advice. And so I just want to share a couple things that she represents, which I really admire her work from what I've seen. I haven't dug in a lot yet. I've read a couple articles and I really like her work. So if you're married and you've been married for a while and you're looking to improve on your marriage even more, she has some tips. And as I said in my last video, we're living in a culture that does not help people with marriage unless you have a really strong family that you come from. And like I shared, my family is just full of divorce. There was no real good role model in that area. Fornication, sexual immorality, that's the norm that I came from. That's the culture that I was raised in, with the music and the boyfriends and the TV and the, learning things from friends. So when you have that kind of background and then you come to Christ and you become a Christian, your life changes. You do a 180. You have, like a whole different motive, whole different purpose in your life for your marriage. Your marriage will change dramatically. So when I first became a Christian and I was saved, I shared about the abortion forced on me and how that hit me hard. And that was in a relationship with my first boyfriend. It was okay to have sex outside of marriage, so that was okay, but the pregnancy was not. And that's where the abortion came in. So when, he started kicking, the truth started hitting me, and realizing, wait a minute, if I'm this far along and he's kicking, then I probably, it probably was a baby before. So I just started understanding the truth, and it brought me to my knees. I hit rock bottom because I've always been someone who loves kids. Babysat my cousins and everything. So I went to church and I heard the gospel, although I had heard it as a little girl and do believe I was saved then. But a great uncle had died, and I never ever went to church again. So when I had gone to church, because I had my firstborn and I wanted to raise him better, that was my only reason for going to church, is I just knew that I wanted better for him. I heard the gospel. Like the second time I went, my eyes were open. I couldn't believe how much God loved me. And from there I grew. And then my marriage did a 180. I mean, I started changing right away. I started wondering, how do I be a good wife? And, I had a lot of advice from an older woman, so I was lucky there. And then I had advice from other women along the way. I mean, I was mentored all the way up. And then I had a group I was part of, a group of women, and shared stuff in there. And so I've always had that accountability in my marriage. And that's where a lot of the turning around came in my life. And I also read a lot of books to help me build my family. So coming from that kind of background to turning it into something more healthy, more, a little more Christian, a little more godly, was a lot of work. And changing my whole perspective about children and how to raise my family. It was all in the trenches. It was all groundwork for many years, as well as the homeschooling, to be able to graduate early from high school and then say, wow, when I started homeschooling, there's so many gaps, there's so much I don't know. And so there was a lot of basic work to do in my life, which I did do. So back to Susan. She has a newsletter, and I really like some of her advice. She basically is talking about developing healthy habits and preventing divorce. Instead of having a divorce, she says there's things you can do. And I really believe in this. I believe in, how do I say this? I believe in working at things. I believe in working hard at everything in life, whether it's your marriage, your children, your family, your homemaking, your homeschooling, money, finances, working hard, doing everything on your part to make something work. And obviously things do come up and people have situations in their life that they cannot control, and not everything is everyone's fault. Things happen. But doing your part, there's personal responsibility, and we don't want to not work at things that we have the ability to work at. We don't want to unnecessarily suffer or not take advantage of opportunities that we can. So Susan talks about kind of changing your mindset about marriage and what you can do. So she talks about, which I like in this last newsletter, of how we talk about COVID is so, scary as far as for people, the damage that can be done. We talk about heart attack, we talk about health a lot, but we don't talk about the damage that can be done in marriage, not to mention to children, especially when they're younger. There's so much damage that can be done, and we don't talk about this. So she talks about implementing things that can work in your marriage. And I took some notes. I looked at her email, and I took some notes, and I think I'm probably going to get into this even more. But she offers a couple different education-based classes that people can take. And she talks about commitment. That's a big one, and that's probably what I'll get into later. Commitment. She talks about negative interaction and how that definitely brings marital distress. And it is really important to be positive in your marriage, to take initiative, to find out what you can do. And it's the smallest things. Like today I had stopped, I was driving with my son. He's getting his license. So we stopped at Pizza Hut, and I have, I got a deal on that, but 2 pieces of pizza for my husband. It's something little, but it's something when he comes home, he knows I thought of him. Just little things, just taking the laundry out of the dryer, thinking of each other, trying to build in positive ways, because so many times things can happen. Like right now we're moving, and the stress of that just pulls you right away. So so she recommends these 2 education research-based classes to strengthen your marriage rather than tearing it down. And we know as Christians, the Proverbs 31 woman, she builds her home. And this, she doesn't tear it down, she builds. So this is something I'm probably going to do a video on, of how do we build our home, especially as we get older and we've done so much work already in our families. How do we continue building? What kind of things build? What kind of things tear down? And communication is a big one in marriage. A lot of times men, when they're talking, they get amped up, and for a woman that can feel intense, or it can feel intimidating, especially if you're sensitive. And then the woman can put her defenses up and get just as mad or amped up or whatever. So the communication is really important in a marriage. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, the other thing is, if you need help, get some counsel. It's not a negative thing. You used to think when people used to get counsel years ago that they had some major, mental problem or something. But counsel to me is just a friend coming alongside a friend and say, hey, you know what? Are you doing okay? I see this in your life. Let's talk. And then sitting down at the table and talk it out and say, well, what's going on in your marriage? And I did this recently. You know, do you have enough time with one another? How's your schedules? Are they fitting together, or is it working that you have time, you know, for yourself while this person's working? How is your commitment? How is, you know, how many years have you given into the marriage? You get a lot to lose if you've been together for a while. So these are the kind of things you want to talk about. You want to talk about, I personally feel Christian counseling is the best. There's other things that are helpful that you can use other resources in the community. But I think as a Christian, it's something that, you know, we serve one another, we think of one another. It's not all about, you know, a wife submitting to a husband. It is both. It's a husband loving his wife and a wife honoring and respecting her husband. And in society, we're supposed to think of one another, honor each other, serve one another, and be helpful to one another. So that's kind of the broader picture of marriage, as marriage represents the church and Christ. So we want really good marriage counsel. We also want it for our families. You know, husbands are to nurture their children, or fathers, I should say, want to nurture their children. They don't just want to be telling their kids what to do all the time. They want to actually nurture a relationship. And if you need, you know, I think it starts with marriage counsel and then it goes into family counsel. So if you need some extra help, don't be afraid to just say, hey, I'm going to need some help here. Give me a hand, please. And yeah, let's start with that, and then let's get into the details. Probably the next time I do a talking video, I'm going to do some more research and get into there and talk about that. Okay, thanks, guys.